The Asylum mind experiment. In the early 1970s, deep in the woodlands of New Hampshire, a psychiatric institution was secretly repurposed for a covert government experiment. It was officially known as the Institute for Mental Wellness Studies, but insiders referred to it as Project Echo. No one knew what the echo was supposed to signify, but some speculated it was because whatever they were about to uncover would echo through a person's mind. Forever. A select team of top neuroscientists, psychologists, and military personnel were assembled. The experiment's purpose was simple, though unsettling to see what would happen if a group of mentally unstable individuals were completely isolated from external stimuli and from each other. They wanted to explore the human psyche's breaking point under conditions of pure solitude, severed from any semblance of reality. Participants, all taken from psychiatric institutions across the country, were promised freedom after a simple psychological study. Those chosen were among the most mentally unstable, but were also very aware, disturbed enough to be unpredictable, but lucid enough to understand their conditions. Each participant was locked in a separate, pitch-black room, soundproofed and stripped of all furnishings save for a bed and a single camera mounted on the ceiling. They were denied any clocks, windows, or human contact. In place of daily meals, the participants received nutrient-dense tablets designed to sustain them, with a single glass of water slid through a slot in the door once a day. There was only one rule: they had to talk. A small microphone in each room recorded every word they spoke. They had no idea who was listening, and they were told that failure to speak could result in the termination of their freedom deal. The team needed hours of monologue from each patient, every day, to keep their minds occupied and ensure they didn't lapse into silence. The first few days went smoothly, though eerie. Most participants muttered softly to themselves, reciting childhood memories, describing places they'd been, and at times shouting just to hear their own voices. One of them, Patient 6, began laughing for hours at a time. It started as a simple chuckle but soon grew into a maddened, guttural laughter that went on day and night. He laughed even in his sleep, or at least while he was unconscious. On day 6, Patient 3 stopped talking entirely. The scientists were concerned, but they didn't interfere, watching closely to see if he'd break. A day later, Patient 3 started sobbing uncontrollably. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "They're in here with me." "There's no one else, only you," the researcher said over the speaker, though he knew Patient 3 couldn't hear him. By day 10, all patients began exhibiting strange behaviors. They claimed to see shadows in their rooms, figures lurking just beyond the corners of their eyes. Patient 8 scratched at the walls until his fingers bled, mumbling about the dark figures who stood beside him, silent and watching. Some refused to sleep, muttering that if they closed their eyes, the shadows would get inside their heads. On day 15, the experiment had reached a boiling point. The subjects were hysterical. Patient 6 began carving letters into his skin with his own fingernails, spelling out "let me out" across his arms and chest. The screams were so intense that even the soundproof walls couldn't fully contain them. Several guards had to be rotated out due to distress. Then came the strangest part. On day 16, all microphones picked up a single word, in unison, from every patient: echo. The word repeated, over and over: echo, echo, echo. Even the patients who had previously spoken of different delusions began chanting it. The scientists were dumbfounded, as no patient had ever been told the name of the project. Suddenly, Patient 3's voice came in loud and clear over the speakers, startling everyone. He sounded completely calm. "You've let them in," he said. "The ones from the dark. You called to them, and they came. They'll live in you too." On day 20, the cameras in all rooms abruptly went dark. Security personnel rushed to the control room to manually inspect the isolation cells, but what they found was beyond disturbing. Each room was empty, no sign of the patients anywhere, despite every door being locked from the outside. Written on each wall, smeared in what appeared to be a mixture of blood and some other dark substance, was one word: echo. There was no logical explanation. No bodies, no escape routes. The patients had simply vanished. The official report stated that Project Echo had been a failure and that the participants were released under classified terms. But those who had been part of the experiment knew the truth. The shadows the patients had spoken of, the echoes they'd heard, had been more than just delusions. Rumour has it that the scientists involved in Project Echo continued to hear the word echo whispered in their ears long after the experiment was over, especially when they were alone in the dark. Some reported seeing shadows lingering at the edge of their vision, vanishing the moment they turned to look. Years later, nearly every person who had participated in Project Echo's administration had either gone mad or disappeared. And to this day, locals swear that if you stand in the woods where the institute once stood and listen closely, you can still hear the faintest whispers of echo. Echo,